Have you ever walked into an older friend's home, someone over 75, and sensed a peculiar silence in the rooms, as though life itself had retreated into corners? Maybe it struck you that despite having their independence, they were living out their days mostly alone, with few visitors and a routine that didn't stretch much beyond the front door. Society often frames living alone as a triumph of self-sufficiency. You've held on to your own space, your own habits, and you can do as you please without accommodating anyone else's schedule. Yet behind that vision, there can be a stark reality for seniors past 75 who live by themselves. For some, it's a liberating choice that fosters tranquility, but for many, the experience carries unexpected strains. In this conversation, we'll explore what really happens when older adults remain alone in later years, the hidden challenges that go beyond simply getting groceries or paying bills. We'll delve into 4 harsh truths that often surface after 75, truths that rarely appear in cheerful brochures about aging in place. By the end, you'll have a clearer idea of what might unfold behind that solitary front door, and just as importantly, what strategies can help ensure that living alone doesn't equate to living lonely or precarious. In the early stages of retirement, many seniors cherish the peace of having their own home, free from the bustle of younger family members or the obligations of communal living. It feels like a well-earned reward. But the first harsh truth that often sets in around the mid to late 70s is that day-to-day tasks can become surprisingly draining when there's no one around to share the load. At 65, picking up groceries might still be manageable, and maybe you even prided yourself on cooking a hearty meal each night. But after 75, it's common for energy levels to fluctuate, or for chronic conditions to flare up. That short drive to the supermarket can turn into a nerve-wracking endeavor if your reflexes aren't what they were, and your eyesight struggles with low light or sudden glares. Once in the store, you might find that carrying multiple bags or bending to reach items on lower shelves causes discomfort in your knees, shoulders, or back. And if your stamina is lower, the entire trip might leave you needing a nap. Then there's the cooking itself. Peeling vegetables, standing at the stove, washing dishes. The solitary nature of these tasks can amplify how tiring they feel. There's no partner to swap tasks with, no adult child to drop off a meal occasionally, so these chores all fall on you. Over time, the cumulative effect can erode your motivation and degrade nutrition if you settle for quick, processed foods to spare your aching joints. The mundane errands of everyday life start to loom like big hurdles, especially when you know you have to tackle them alone tomorrow, the next day, and every day thereafter. Some older adults feel a subtle dread creeping into their routine, a sense that every chore is a small mountain. They might not complain because independence is precious, yet silently they wish there was just someone else around to help carry a heavy basket, or remind them they're not battling life's basics in isolation. A second reality that emerges for seniors living alone is that social isolation, once seen as a fleeting inconvenience, can solidify into a major emotional and cognitive burden. In your earlier 70s, maybe you still had a steady flow of visitors, friends from the community, or neighbors dropping by for coffee. But as years pass, peers might move to assisted living, downsize to new locations, or pass away. Sometimes your own adult children, if you have them, are caught up in the swirl of their middle-aged careers, or grandparenting their own grandkids far away. You might find yourself going full days without genuine face-to-face interaction. Certainly, phone calls or video chats can bridge some gaps, but they rarely replace the warmth of in-person contact. Studies consistently link such isolation with higher risks of depression, anxiety, and even cognitive decline, including a faster progression of memory issues. People might assume that if you want company, you can just go outside, join a community group, or attend social events. But for someone past 75 who may have limited mobility or hearing difficulties, these outings feel daunting. Transportation can be an issue, crossing busy streets might raise fears of falling, or loud group settings can overwhelm hearing aids. The result is that social outings shrink. Days that used to be dotted with small but meaningful interactions, like a chat with the mail carrier or a spontaneous coffee with a neighbor, become hushed. You end up spending hours in front of the TV or reading alone, the house quiet. And after a while, you might stop noticing the silence because it's become the norm. Yet that norm can intensify feelings of irrelevance or invisibility, a sense that life is passing on the other side of your walls without including you. This isolation not only impacts mental health, but can also feed into physical ailments. When you feel isolated, your body's stress response can stay elevated, affecting blood pressure and immunity. It's a silent cascade that often goes unchecked, simply because no one's there to see the changes in your demeanor. The third harsh truth is about safety and health oversight. Living alone might initially feel safe enough, especially if you're relatively fit at 70 or 75, but as reflexes slow and balance issues arise, the likelihood of falls or small accidents in the home increases. What might be a minor stumble at 60 becomes a major risk at 78, where a fractured hip can lead to extended hospital stays and drastically reduced mobility. Even a seemingly trivial cut or infection, if not promptly attended to, can escalate when there's no one around to notice that your bandage needs changing or that your foot is swelling strangely. You might manage daily well-being tasks like taking blood pressure medication or using a walker just fine for a while, but an unexpected dizziness in the shower or an incorrect dosage of medication can have rapid and serious consequences. If you do fall and you can't reach the phone, hours or even a full day could pass before help arrives. Some older adults set up emergency alert systems, but not everyone has the resources or the discipline to wear them consistently. And even with such devices, in the moment of crisis, confusion or shock might prevent you from pressing the button. Then there's the matter of medical appointments. Living alone means no one is automatically there to remind you or drive you. You might skip or postpone checkups because coordinating a ride is too complicated, or you feel too tired to manage the outing. Over time, small health issues like an uptick in blood sugar or a slight but consistent chest pain could slip under the radar until they balloon into something far more severe. Families often assume the senior will just call if something is wrong, but a surprising number of older adults don't want to bother anyone or fear that admitting a problem would lead to pressure to move out of their home. This sets up a precarious balance: independence on one hand, but a heightened risk for unmonitored decline. The harshness here is that you might not realize how vulnerable you are until a health crisis hits. The final sobering aspect: financial and emotional stress can compound in surprising ways, draining the sense of autonomy that living alone once promised. As you pass 75, income might be fixed or shrinking, and any unexpected home repair, like a leaky roof or a broken furnace, can strain your budget to the breaking point. If you live alone, it's solely your responsibility to find a trustworthy contractor, negotiate costs, or figure out how to finance the repair. Unscrupulous individuals sometimes prey on seniors who live by themselves, sensing that they might not have immediate support from family or neighbors. This can lead to scams or overcharging, further eroding financial stability. Meanwhile, the cost of utilities or property taxes can gradually rise, nibbling at your savings. If your health falters and you need part-time home care for bathing or housekeeping, that's another expense. The emotional toll of these financial pressures can be immense. Worries about covering monthly bills or unexpected costs might keep you up at night. And because living alone means no partner to weigh decisions with, you might bottle up your anxiety. Additionally, the emotional strain of caring for the property, raking leaves, cleaning gutters, or even changing light bulbs in a high fixture, can feel overwhelming. You might not physically be able to manage these tasks easily, but hiring help can be pricey. So you might put them off, and a backlog of home maintenance can accumulate, turning once comfortable living spaces into a source of constant worry or partial neglect. The home that symbolized independence could start to feel like a burden of chores and bills, fueling a sense of being trapped rather than free. Some seniors adapt by downsizing or renting out a portion of their home, but these transitions can be complicated. Finding the right place, packing decades of memories, or trusting a new tenant if you rent out a room. Each step can feel like a gamble. Meanwhile, family might not fully grasp your predicament unless you speak up, which some older adults hesitate to do, fearing it might accelerate unwanted decisions about assisted living or downsizing. In this swirl of concerns, you can feel more alone than ever. However, recognizing these four truths doesn't have to be a despairing end to the conversation. The point is not to argue that living alone is always a mistake, but to acknowledge the complexities so that seniors, families, and communities can better prepare. Some older adults thrive by forging daily or weekly support networks, neighbors who drop by, a nephew or granddaughter who does the grocery run, or a church group that organizes potluck meals. Others incorporate technology, wearable devices with fall detection, phone apps that remind them to take medication, or home security systems with cameras that let them see who's at the door before answering. Little interventions like installing grab bars in the shower, using a medical alert system, or scheduling a weekly phone check with a friend can reduce the risk of isolated incidents. Social groups, whether in person or online, can mitigate the emotional isolation if mobility is an obstacle, and planning finances carefully, maybe with a trusted advisor, can help manage repairs and possible in-home care. The harsh truths remain, but they're not unbeatable if you approach them head-on. The real tragedy often occurs when older adults and their loved ones never discuss these possibilities until a crisis hits. A fall, a hospital stay, or discovering that bills have gone unpaid for months. These events can force abrupt changes, leaving little room for personal preference. One might also question the concept of independence. After 75, independence might not look like total solitude. It could instead mean controlling how you get the help you need on your own terms. You could remain in your house, but arrange for regular housekeeping or meal delivery. You might share rides with other seniors or use local paratransit services, or you could buddy up with a neighbor, each of you checking in on the other. Independence in older age can be more about choice and autonomy than about doing every single thing alone. That shift in perspective can allow seniors to embrace a support system while still feeling in charge. Whether you're the one living alone or you have a loved one who is, open communication is crucial. Asking questions like, "How are you handling groceries these days?" or "Is there anything around the house that's become tough?" can peel back the polite veneer that older adults often maintain. The responses might reveal that all is well, or it might show they're struggling quietly, waiting for someone to notice. If finances are a worry, discussing them proactively, maybe in the presence of a financial counselor or a neutral third party, can prevent exploitation or catastrophic decisions down the line. Another factor is local community resources. Many towns have senior centers that offer ride-sharing, meal programs, or home visit volunteers. Tapping into these programs might seem uncomfortable if you've spent your life being self-reliant, but they exist precisely because communities know the pitfalls of solitary aging. The same goes for supportive neighbors. Sometimes, all it takes is letting them know you'd appreciate a friendly knock once a day, or a text message if that's feasible. Such small gestures can bridge the gap between an empty house and one that feels connected to the outside world. You could also consider mild home modifications to safeguard against accidents, like removing loose rugs, rearranging furniture for clearer pathways, ensuring lighting is strong in hallways or near stairs. A few carefully placed motion sensor lights can drastically reduce nighttime stumbling. Each measure might look trivial on its own, but collectively they add up to a safer environment that compensates for reflexes or vision that aren't as sharp as they once were. It's also worth addressing the internal emotional dimension. Living alone can prompt a gradual shift in how you see yourself and your purpose. Without a partner or a steady flow of visitors, some seniors wonder, "What am I waking up for each day?" Or, "Does anyone notice if I'm gone?" The risk of depression or a sense of meaningless can creep in if you don't find an anchor, be it a hobby, a volunteering role, a pet, or a spiritual community. Even tasks like tending a small indoor plant or writing a short daily journal can keep your mind engaged. The more you feed your sense of purpose, the less likely you are to dwell on the emptiness that can arise from minimal human contact. Some older adults discover new interests once the house is silent. Maybe they pick up painting or delve into reading about history topics they never had time for. Others find solace in daily phone calls with a friend who also lives alone, turning those calls into a routine. The key is to remain open to possibilities for growth, even in your 70s or 80s, rather than retreating into inactivity or passivity. Meanwhile, families or close friends can play a role by staying aware. They might worry about interfering or imposing, but gentle, consistent check-ins can reveal emerging issues. For example, if a parent's phone calls change from once a week to seldom, or they sound increasingly confused, that might signal deeper issues of isolation or health decline. Rather than seeing these changes as normal old age, it's wise to explore: is a hearing loss making phone calls too stressful? Have they run short on money for phone bills? Are they simply feeling less motivated to talk because depression is creeping in? Addressing these factors early can prevent them from spiraling. Of course, there's also the question of whether to stay alone indefinitely or transition to a more supportive living arrangement. It's not always an easy decision, nor is it uniform for everyone. Some thrive alone well into their 90s with minimal help, while others might do better in a setting where help with housekeeping and medical oversight is readily available. The harsh truths we've discussed: daily tasks, social isolation, safety/health oversight, and financial/emotional pressures are the big factors that can tip the scale. If they become unmanageable, or if the strain of dealing with them significantly undercuts the quality of life, exploring assisted living, co-housing with friends, or moving in with family could be a relief rather than a defeat. The stigma around leaving your own home often stops people from even considering it, but sometimes a well-run assisted living community can deliver a new lease on life. More social interaction, easier access to care, and structured activities that break the monotony. The crucial step is to weigh these decisions before a crisis, maybe in your early 70s or as you notice changes. If you wait until you've had 3 bad falls or can't handle your finances, your options might narrow. In essence, the reality of seniors living alone post-75 is multifaceted. It can be a testament to independence, personal freedom, and the comfort of one's own space. Simultaneously, it can conceal a host of difficulties: burdensome chores, growing loneliness, overlooked health and safety risks, and financial or emotional strains that quietly escalate. Neither the media's rosy depiction of active seniors happily aging in place, nor the dire stereotype of a lonely recluse tells the whole truth. The actual experience lands somewhere in between, shaped by personal resilience, available support, community resources, and adaptability. Awareness is the first step. By acknowledging these 4 harsh truths, older adults and their families can take proactive steps to mitigate them. Maybe that means forging a better local support system, reorganizing the living space for ease, using technology for emergency alerts, or reevaluating whether living alone is still the best option at this life stage. In the end, independence shouldn't come at the cost of well-being or personal peace. If you or a loved one is past 75 and living alone, open the conversation. Start small. Talk about groceries, about how many times you see another human face daily, about the condition of your home's safety features. Then talk about finances, about a backup plan if you fall ill, about who checks on you weekly. It might feel uncomfortable at first. Nobody wants to give the impression they can't handle life. But taking that step can yield insights that prevent bigger crises later on. Living alone can still be rewarding in advanced age, provided you address the silent pitfalls. And if, after honest reflection, the cost of that solitude grows too high, it's never too late to consider alternatives that offer both safety and a sustaining community. Ultimately, it's about honoring the dignity of choice while being realistic about the complexities that crop up after 75. Independence is precious, but so is living a life that's not overshadowed by the silent struggles of going it alone day after day.